Thanks to Rothy's for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Have you heard about this company making stylish shoes for women and girls out of recycled plastic water bottles? Oh, and they're insanely comfortable and machine washable. Go get yourself a pair today with free shipping at rothys.com using promo code AG. And thanks to Brewmate for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Brewmate wants to create the perfect drinking experience to keep every sip of your drink refreshing. Brewmate is giving our listeners a special discount of 15% off your first order when you go to www.brewmate.com and use code AG. And finally, this episode is brought to you by the MSW Book Club. Join Jordan, Jaleesa, and I as we review several books connected to Trump-Russia in episodes once available only to premium subscribers. Just search for the MSW Book Club wherever you get your podcasts, or head to mswbookclub.com for more information.
This is Sarah Kenzier from Gaslit Nation, and you're listening to Mueller, She Wrote.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello, and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your host, AG, and with me, as always, is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
We are recording in studio here in LA at Starburns. It's been an amazing week, you guys. Months ago, we scheduled a live show at Largo, and it just so happened to be the day that the redacted Mueller report dropped. So, but you know, we are deep state, and we were able to coordinate that. So, the Department of Justice was on our side. But we had an amazing time at Largo, and we really want to thank everybody for that. We'll have some clips from that show in lieu of the interview today later in this show. So stick around for that. And this week we were on the Happy Hour podcast with Steph Miller. So that was a really good time.
She's amazing.
So funny. Holy shit.
She's pretty awesome. And we did an appearance on KPCC and the LAist up here. And, you know, we love public radio. We support public radio. I was on Yahoo News right after the bullshit Barr presser came out.
Great interview, by the way.
It was great. I love how, we didn't know that you were getting interviewed by more than one person. So it was like one guy in the beginning, and then like another person pops up on screen, all with entirely different backgrounds. It's like, what is happening right now?
It was funny. But watching that press conference, I got up at like 6 in the morning to get ready for it. What was up with Rosenstein's face during that press conference?
Yeah, he was like a robot, for sure.
So weird.
I think he was just trying to poker face the whole thing.
He looks like that creepy boy wooden toy doll that's just sitting there haunting.
Definitely.
You.
Yeah.
There's like a movie about that or something. Like
the robot
puppet
that wants to kill humans too. Like I thought about that.
I think
too.
this one is wooden. It's an old manual demon.
So not Chucky.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Someone made a meme where it's like when the edibles kick in, or when it's Thursday but you think it's Friday. Like.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
But it's more Wednesday and Thursday, not Thursday and Friday.
True.
And also lots of folks have been asking who the beardy guy was, stage right, during the press conference. And we've talked about that guy like in 5 different episodes. Here's one from May 2018 in the episode called Paul Manafort's Future. Let's listen to that clip. Rod Rosenstein appointed an assistant on the Russia probe named O'Callahan, which just reminds me of like Dennis Leary's Irish drinking songs. His title is the Acting Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General.
Okay.
Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General. That's like the assistant number 2 president, undersecretary to the assistant of the special
second twice removed
assistant deputy of the guy. And I'm like, wow. So it's, Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General, PADAG, PADAG, or PADAG. They call him the PADAG. He's basically the Deputy Attorney General's right hand. Mm-hmm. And he replaces a guy named Robert Hur, that's her, who was moved over to be the U.S. Attorney of Maryland. So that happened. I don't really know how much that makes a difference, but it happened, so I wanted to tell you. So that's who that was. That's the PADAG. And it's very telling also that Mueller wasn't there, because usually when you have these kind of AG press conferences, you have the prosecutors there and they all get up and sort of say the same thing over and over again and support each other. But I wonder if he was asked and maybe refused to participate in the bullshit. And maybe that's why Rosenstein was just sitting over there like, this is terrible. Satan is good.
Except Satan is good, exactly. Because he had like a little smirk on his face, it seemed.
That's true. At a certain point, yeah, he laughed at one of the questions from a reporter, actually. A little bit, yeah.
He did fix his glasses and twitch his nose, kind of like a high sign. But yeah, no, Mueller wasn't there, not this time, so just thought that was a really odd press conference. But today we're here recording at Starburn Studio, working on the Daily Beans with some of the best writers in the business. We have no idea if we've won the Webby, but voting is closed. And thank you all so much for your support. They'll announce the winners Tuesday. That's 2 days from the release of this episode.
I'm excited. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
So we have a great show lined up for you. Alexander Downer is back in the news, and Jordan's going to cover that for us. Jaleesa, you have a story about some squid pro quo involving a Russian aluminum company.
Mm-hmm.
We are, of course, going to hit the hot notes of the Mueller report. And in lieu of an interview, as I said earlier, we're going to play some of the clips from our live show with Elizabeth McLaughlin and Jack Bryan that we did at Largo.
Yeah, so fun.
Yeah, what a great couple of guests and just what a great crowd. We also want to tell you we're going to do a full annotated review of the Mueller report in a series that will be released widely. Patrons will get those episodes ad-free and early, so become a patron at patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote. When you sign up to become a patron, you are automatically also going to be a patron of the Daily Beans, and that's our new daily news podcast coming out soon. But before we get into this week's news, let's take a look at corrections.
It's a mistake. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Shut the fuck up!
Okay, so in a daily update this week, I had said that in camera meant in the courthouse because it comes from the Latin word for roof or house, but it actually means in chambers, alone, which is where all justice porn should be viewed.
Yeah, it sounds like some dominatrix stuff right there.
And we'll get into why I was talking about that a little bit later in the show in Just the Facts. There's a whole story that goes with it, and it's a pretty cool story. Then we want to be clear. We love USC, guys. Go Trojans. In a daily episode, we were discussing the Aunt Becky college bribery case, and I had said $500,000, like $500,000 for USC. Now, of course, it's an amazing school. We just didn't think it was worth $500,000.
Oh, it's definitely not worth $500,000.
But if you've seen that kid's Instagram, you could see why it costs so much.
She's like an Instagram influencer, right? That's her true calling.
Yeah,
whatever.
Why even force her to go to college?
Really, keep your Instagram job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they ask you to provide a certain percentage of your net worth. And that's what $500,000 was.
Yeah, maybe. But then wouldn't you be like, dude, really $500,000? Like, have you heard your daughter speak?
Mm-hmm. Don't quit your Instagram job.
Yeah, don't quit your Insta job.
Did you see, I'm so sorry, did you see that video of that person who's a YouTube influencer and her account got deleted or something? And so she filmed herself crying. She's like, I'm not meant for a 9-to-5 job. I can't do
that
it.
hits home, though. That does resonate with me.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a crier.
All right.
Tiny violins. We also did a story recently about an Asian American gala at the Trump inaugural tied to Cindy Yang, of course, that raised a ton of money that just disappeared. And one of the major donors was the Saipan Casino. And I had pronounced it Saipan, and someone wanted to let me know it's Saipan. So it's Leviosa. And calm down, everybody. But thank you. Now I know. And when we were discussing Biden's touchy-feeliness, we couldn't remember if Biden had voted for Clarence Thomas or not. He actually did not vote for him for his confirmation, but I think the focus of that conversation specifically wasn't so much his actual vote, but his regretful statements during the Anita Hill hearings.
Right.
Do you remember what he said?
Just a whole bunch of
hoopla.
Like, look, sometimes you get close, you know?
Oh, my goodness.
And
yeah.
Close
I didn't even put it
here.
all together until just now.
Sometimes you sniff people's hair. Sometimes you put pubic hairs on their Coke. It's just fine. I don't remember exactly what he said, but
oh
it
my
wasn't.
God, I was going to say he did that? Oh.
We can review it during a different episode, but I just wanted to kind of make clear that I wasn't. We weren't speaking about his confirmation vote, more of just his shitty statements.
Yeah, we can do a bad lip reading for that sometime.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then the computer besides Alpha Bank that was pinging Trump Tower in early 2015 wasn't a pharmaceutical company associated with Betsy DeVos. It was Spectrum Health, which is a large healthcare network in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that received huge donations from the DeVos family. And it turns out Betsy DeVos, who's, Eric Prince's sister, of course, and our feckless education secretary, is married, and her husband is the chairman of the board of Spectrum Health. So they're donors, chairman of the board, and that was another server that was pinging Trump Tower along with Alpha Bank in early 2015. Weird. And finally, during a daily update for patrons, we were discussing how Buttigieg doesn't have a podcast yet. And Jaleesa, you mentioned Hillary Clinton could have used a podcast during that 2016 campaign. And as it turns out, she had one.
Yeah, I guess it just wasn't popular enough. Maybe podcasts were just harder for people to get into at the time.
It was called With Her. Somebody sent that to us. We had asked people at Largo, have you heard of this podcast? Everyone's like, no.
Yeah, it was a first for me too.
Yeah,
but I'm
no
glad
one.
she tried. She had the right idea,
Yeah, so I didn't feel crazy for not. I was with you. I didn't think there was one.
Right.
Yes, the most under-listened to podcast to date from a presidential candidate.
Yeah, man.
It's about.
I guess that's not been a thing since recently, though. Huh?
True, yeah. Trump really dominated the podcast industry.
Yeah, right?
You got to be crazy, yeah.
All right, guys. Those are corrections from this week. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Mostly just pronunciations and didn't know that Hillary had a podcast. That's cool. And, USC doesn't suck. But we have a lot of news to get to, so let's jump in with just the facts. All right, guys, let's start with Bill Barr. When we learned earlier in the week from amazing reporting from Ryan Goodman at justsecurity.org that back in 1989, Bill Barr was at the Office of Legal Counsel at Maine Justice, and he wrote a memo that basically gave Bush the green light to abduct foreigners on foreign soil without talking to the foreigners first, the foreign government.
Right.
And this was basically to pave the way for allowing us to abduct Manuel Noriega, because Bush at the time was publicly supporting a coup against him, and it wasn't really working out too well. So it seems like they were trying to do a backdoor, kind of a Gulen, Turkey, Flynn situation where they were going to fly him out in the night. And not have to get permission from Panama to do that.
Yeah, let's go on a fishing trip. Never comes back.
Gone fishing.
Nice.
From Noriega. So Barr wrote this memo, and Congress asked to see it because it was submitted in secrecy, and Barr refused. He said he would be happy, though, to summarize the principal conclusions.
Of course.
And those are the exact words he used last month when he said he would summarize the principal conclusions of the Mueller report.
Yeah, asked no one.
Eventually, Congress subpoenaed Barr's Office of Legal Counsel opinion and found that his summary totally omitted the most consequential incendiary conclusions. He just left them out, and there was no justifiable reason for withholding them from Congress and the public. So here we are again, and Barr has totally whitewashed the Mueller report on multiple occasions to spin the findings in favor of the president. He's taken a giant shit on the independence of the Justice Department, and now he's blatantly and obviously obstructing justice, at least in my eyes.
At least he's consistent.
Yep, there you go. Consistency matters.
Yeah, and he also inserted things that were not true into that summary report, like the no more indictments thing. Nowhere in the report, right, does Mueller explicitly say no more indictments are coming.
It actually indicates that there are. And we did have one. We had Greg Craig indicted after the Mueller investigation was over, which was part of the Mueller investigation and is listed as one of the indictable offenses in the Mueller report, which Barr didn't redact. And I have some theories on why he didn't redact as much as we thought he was going to.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But honestly, Congress should subpoena all the communications about the release of the Mueller report and the drafting of Barr's bullshit conclusions, and I think they should impeach him. I don't think that this is proper behavior at all.
Right.
He's obstructing obstructions.
Yeah, even if they're not successful, you still think it's worth it because it is risky. We've talked about the risk, but you feel like it's just warranted. It's like we're tied.
I don't see the risk in trying to impeach the Attorney General.
Oh, the Attorney. I'm sorry. I was thinking Trump. My bad. Yeah.
I'm thinking Barr.
Oh, yeah. I forget you can impeach them, too.
Is the process the same, more or less?
I'd have to look it up. I assume so.
Yeah. I mean, definitely he's done things that would warrant that, but it's interesting to think about because what role would the Attorney General play in an impeachment proceeding of the president? Do they play any sort of
in
role?
The court?
There's no
hearings?
Oversight that the DOJ has over that or anything. It's like strictly congressional power.
Right, because Department of Justice is executive branch, and impeachment is a political proceeding within the Congress.
Cool.
So totally different.
So he wouldn't have any.
And there's nothing.
Branch.
So there's like nothing that the AG could do to stop that if Congress pushes it through.
Unless he's got some weird illegal tricks.
Yeah. But what about all the subpoenas and hearings and stuff? He's in charge of that, though, right? Like he's in charge of like all the things that they're subpoenaing and trying to get people to testify about.
Well, he's not so much in charge of it, but he's the one who responds to the subpoenas to the Department of Justice if they go to the Department of Justice. Like if they subpoena Barr, that's kind of his kind of what's happening right now with the tax returns. That's the IRS, which is under the Department of Treasury, and Department of Treasury is blocking that based on letters that Trump lawyers have sent to Steve Mnuchin. So, yeah, they can block it, whether it's legal or not. Another thing that you can do is when Attorney General Barr is no longer an Attorney General, but he's a private citizen. And I don't think there are any rules against indicting an Attorney General, though, but he could be indicted for obstruction of justice either while he's serving his term or afterwards.
Wow.
I don't know if it's easier one or the other. But Nixon's Attorney General went to prison.
Yeah, Barr needs to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think they should immediately start an investigation into obstruction of justice.
Barr behind bars. We got to start this hashtag.
But they'd have to prove that he himself did something outside of just the spinning element that he's been doing, you know?
Well, to prove, now that we have seen the full Mueller report, we know that in order to prove obstruction of justice, you need 3 elements, right? You need the nexus of a judicial proceeding. You need, nexus of something.
Yeah.
That sounds right. I remember, yeah.
I'm convinced.
You need an act, like, for example, spinning, lying to the public, fucking up that memo.
Adding shit that wasn't there.
Omitting things, adding things. And that's an act to obstruct justice. Sitting on the report for 3 weeks, 4 weeks almost, could be an obstructive act. Not releasing the full report to Congress maybe could be considered an obstruction. So you need an act of obstruction.
Yeah, that sounds the most to me, not releasing it to Congress.
Yeah, but see, the thing is that obstruction of justice is you're obstructing justice in an investigation, and the Mueller investigation is purportedly over. So can you obstruct justice
retroactively?
But I mean, is he obstructing the Mueller investigation by, lying about its conclusions? And then because a lot of the stuff that's in the obstruction cases within the Mueller report are lying to the public about these obstructive behaviors. And then, of course, intent. And that's why they're probably subpoenaing all communications. Nadler wants to see all communications about the release of the Mueller report or the non-release of the Mueller report, what Mueller had to do with it, how you guys decided you'd roll it out. We need to see that documentation because then you might be able to prove intent.
Right. Yeah. I think you could maybe prove intent to obstruct the House investigations, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that's a distinct possibility because in the Mueller report, he says that the Congress now has the ability to criminally investigate these matters, and that makes it an investigation. And maybe Mueller put that in there for that exact reason, so that it wouldn't be obstructed on its way there. That would be fucking genius.
Hell yeah.
Beans. I'm putting beans on that.
Nice. I want to get a big chain that says beans. Like a nice gold chain. Yeah.
Well, like, we should do little necklaces like Carrie Bradshaw has, but just says beans.
Yeah.
That'd be cute.
2 beans, like 2 chains, but two beans on a chain.
Yeah.
2 beans.
You a 2 Chainz fan,
sounds like a song.
Yeah.
2 beans.
It might as well be
chain.
now. Yeah.
2 beans on a chain. Let me see your Tootsie Roll. Okay, I'm sorry.
You in 2 decades. That's great.
I don't know what's happening. It's been a long week.
Yeah, very.
And then I also wanted to talk about you guys. Barr's obvious conflicts of interest. He shouldn't have ever taken an oversight role of the Mueller investigation in the first place because it's so obvious. First of all, he has upwards of $250,000 in assets with Deutsche Bank. There's one. He's worked with Vector Group, headed by Howard Lorber, who's one of the 3 blocked calls Don Jr. received after the 2016 Trump Tower meeting. And he's traveled to Russia with Trump to help him build a Trump Tower in Moscow. He's a real estate guy. That's Lorber. He's also worked with the Ziff brothers, who are the guys associated with the quote-unquote dirt on Hillary Clinton that Veselnitskaya promised Don Jr., to which Don replied, "If it's what you say, I love it." And finally, he worked at the law firm that represented Alpha Bank alongside Brian Benchkowski. We know Alpha Bank is the server that was pinging the Trump Tower server in early 2015 for unknown reasons. And one of the heads of Alpha Bank is Yerman Khan. He's the father-in-law of Vanderswan. And all 4 of those things were investigated by Mueller, and Barr shouldn't be allowed near his investigation.
Right. It's like a conflict of interest bingo. Like, he just hits all of the marks.
It is. And maybe that could be brought into the impeachment hearings or a criminal obstruction case. But he shouldn't be allowed near it, let alone be allowed to spin it, withhold the summaries that were written for the public. We still haven't seen those. I mean, it was obvious that aside from shoving it in a drawer for 2 weeks, showing it to Trump so that he could develop a misinformation campaign about it, redacting nearly 1/8 of it, then lying about what's in it at a press conference before the rest of us get to read it. Aside from all that, I mean, he didn't release the summaries. He's releasing a very robust, and I'm really glad Mueller wrote the report the way that he wrote it, but it is a very legal document. It's a legal work product. And I don't think Americans are just going to be gung-ho about reading a 448-page report.
Right. Why not release the summaries? What do you think he had to gain from that? Because it seems like
easy.
People
it's
understanding
so
what happened.
Oh,
he doesn't want the
damn.
American people to know what's in that fucking report.
That is insane.
So he released the full long version.
He know that most people won't read it.
Withheld the summaries, spun it so that people who were too lazy to read the report just listen to whatever he says.
Yep.
And it's true. A lot of people only tune into the major announcements from people like the Attorney General, so they're going to think it's the truth.
Yeah, and he had devised that, I'm sure, with Trump's counsel, both in the White House and personal.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, Reuters put out a story today that they spent a good, Giuliani and Sekulow spent a good 6 hours before the report came out, taking notes in a skiff, reading the full report, taking notes. Giuliani said he took over 30 pages of notes.
Wow.
About the report. All went back to Trump.
And all they could come up with was Trump's tweets.
Yeah, that's
so
the
far,
thing.
that's their only official reaction.
Yeah, like you worked
that's
really
all.
hard on your "this report is bullshit" tweet. Like that's what you came up with, and then your Game of Thrones game over
reference. Yeah, that
meme.
little meme. Yeah.
Where are their responses? Am I just not watching Fox News, or are they coming out and giving official statements yet?
They're tweeting.
I haven't seen anything other than tweets.
Yep,
that's his official response.
You know, it's also amazing too. When the 4-page Barr report came out, they came on to CNN and MSNBC and things like that. There was Giuliani there taking their victory lap.
That's right.
And now this has happened, and they're nowhere to be seen
Very
on any
good
of those
point,
programs
Jordan.
because
Yeah.
it's not good for them.
Correct. And right after the full report dropped, and at first Trump was like, maybe I'll do a press conference. You never know. Well, he was seen later after the report dropped going to Mar-a-Lago, just beelined across the fucking White House lawn onto the helicopter like nothing to say.
Damn.
Don't even look at the cameras. Keep walking.
Don't look at my shame.
Finally, I've been longing to see him just fucking walk somewhere.
And just shut the fuck
just
up.
shut the fuck up.
Go on a walk and just shut up.
Walk, dude.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Renato Mariotti did a great summary for Politico about how Barr has tried to hide the obstruction of justice case against Trump, saying for a month now, Barr has led us to believe that there wasn't enough evidence to show obstruction, when in fact, the report shows clear evidence of obstruction laid out by a prosecutor who knew he wasn't allowed to bring charges.
Right.
It's obvious.
Little Adderall there.
Little
Adderall
sniff.
45.
Yeah, Adderall 45 from my soul.
Maybe Adderall will sponsor us with some Adderall.
That would be amazing. I'm a big fan of Adderall. Only had it like twice, but man.
It's good.
Big fan.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it was that good.
This episode's brought to you by Adderall.
A fan is also a great thing to have while on Adderall. Just
True.
Fan. I
Yeah.
have a personal hot flash fan. So.
Oh, nice.
try it on Adderall.
Yeah. It's like a vibrator sound.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
They should make a dual vibrator menopause fan.
Yes.
With a remote control in it.
Right?
Yes.
For when you're overheated.
Mm-hmm.
It
and
just
lazy.
extends out and then like makes a right angle and has a fan blowing in your face while it's going on.
And has a Postmates button for wine delivery.
Patent
Chocolate.
pending. We got to
Very
get this.
specific.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and also, the New York Times dropped a bomb this week, reporting that the Department of Justice and the White House were having robust discussions about contents of the Mueller report for at least a week. And we were sort of talking about this with the news that just dropped in Reuters about Sekulow and Giuliani. But this reporting in the New York Times answered our question from a daily update we had this week about how Giuliani and Trump could possibly be preparing a rebuttal report when we were told they hadn't seen the report. And Barr was asked about it by Congress, and Barr said he never showed it to them. That could have been afterwards, though. Like maybe at that point he hadn't showed it to
Right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said during that testimony he would not discuss the report until the public had it, but then held that propaganda press conference that Dems in Congress told him to cancel. They wrote a letter saying, cancel this bullshit because of its inappropriateness.
Mm-hmm. Inappropriate.
Inappropriate. I like that. Further, in the days leading up to the release of the report, we heard tell that some current and former White House staff were worried about being identified as sources because Trump might retaliate against them. Well, boo fucking who,
Yeah.
I'd like to say. Nobody forced you to work for the shit monster.
So true.
You made your bed, lie in it. And they were right, though. Just after the report dropped, Don McGahn, who was mentioned over 500 times by name in the Mueller report, suffered the wrath of Trump because Trump fired his law firm from his 2020 re-election campaign.
Damn.
Frankly, I'm surprised he hired him in the first place because McGahn spent 30 hours talking to Mueller. Maybe he was like, he's on my side.
Mm-hmm.
Loyalty test.
Yeah, it's fun too, going back now, knowing all these people who show up in the Mueller report so much and knowing who sources probably were for books like Russian Roulette and what was the other one that we read? That's
Fear.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Fear. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know Rob Porter was a big contributor to a lot of those things, and John Kelly as well.
Yeah. This has been in my head for like 60 seconds now. I feel like when you said you made your bed, I just wanted to say you made your bed, pee in it. But the moment's passed. I feel like it's just been stuck in my head.
No, that's good.
I had to get it out.
We can just insert it and just jump
there you
it back.
go. Yeah, make it all better.
You
Jump
made
the
your
clip
bed.
back.
Pay a prostitute to urinate on it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, let's see, after the Barr press propaganda disinformatia conference, during which he offered a less redacted version to Congress, Jerry Nadler came out and said, fuck no, dude. Because had Congress accepted that offer, they would have had to have read the information in a skiff. They wouldn't be allowed to take copies out. They wouldn't be allowed to take notes. And they wouldn't be allowed to discuss it with one another.
Yeah, and the whole point is we do not trust what you redacted or how you choose what you redact. So giving us anything that's redacted at all defeats the purpose of even asking for it.
So allowing Giuliani and Sekulow to see the fully unredacted report and take notes and discuss it. But Congress? No.
It's weird.
Sketch or no?
Sketch or no?
Sketch.
Then we found out about a new aluminum plant in the United States. We're shifting gears now. I'm done with Barr. Fuck Barr. We have a new aluminum plant. Yay, in the United States. Woohoo, courtesy of Russia. And Jaleesa's going to go over that in Hot Notes.
Oh, yeah.
We also got a look at the unsealed affidavit against Assange this week. And it does, in fact, say that he conspired to hack a server with Chelsea Manning, which is a crime. However, after seeing the sycophantic shit show that is Bill Barr, I do not trust this Justice Department, and we need to watch the extradition case against Julian Assange to make sure Trump and his puppets don't try to use this as a way to limit the free press, the Fourth Estate, right, which Trump has continually called an enemy of the people.
Exactly.
I want to keep my eye close on this because it needs to be, if they're going to prosecute Assange for a crime, it has to be very narrow and it can't touch distribution of materials.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a protection of the free press.
Yeah.
Or FOIA requests. I feel like there's going to be an attack on FOIA requests, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show because of this FOIA thing that happened this week that might have is what I was talking. Remember, I thought there, with the number of redactions being as low as it was, I think it has something to do with a FOIA filing and a judge decision.
Interesting.
In that case, we'll go into that in a little bit. And of course, the battle for Trump's taxes wages on this week as Trump's lawyers issue a second letter to the Treasury warning them to not allow the IRS to release his taxes to the Democrats in Congress. And even though it's the law, I'm hoping the grand jury materials and underlying evidence in the Mueller report include the Trump tax returns.
Yeah, they need to.
And his finances. I'm almost certain they're in there. So,
I saw a guy, some Republican was like, they keep asking for his tax returns. They're not going to be satisfied. Like, after that, they're going to want, like, other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, they want evidence. It's like if you murdered someone, they want the murder knife or, the gun. They want everything they can get.
Knife.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, if we demand the taxes now and it's not enough, soon we're going to be marrying animals.
Right.
Slippery slope, tax slopes.
Trickle down. Yeah.
Yeah, but his finances have to be in there. I mean, his finances weren't gone over in the Mueller report, but I'm certain those 14 referred cases, his finances are in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever, U.S. Attorney's Office that was referred out to, they have Trump's taxes. And when you get all the underlying evidence, if, Nadler's subpoenaing that, the full Mueller report, all underlying evidence, Trump's taxes got to be in there. That's another way for them to get Trump's taxes. So we'll keep an eye on that, too. They'll come out.
Oh, yeah.
The House subpoenaed a lot of information this week. First of all, they subpoenaed information about Trump's finances from Deutsche Bank this week. They've also asked for information about the pardon dangled to the acting DHS secretary, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, McAleenan, I think his name is. And the White House also has rejected the House request for documents about the AT&T Time Warner merger.
Mm-hmm.
So the investigations push on in the House, and Trump continues to block them because it's totally legal and totally cool. Also this week, here's the story. Here's the thing. There was an incredible and possibly hugely consequential story. BuzzFeed filed a FOIA request for the entire Mueller report, and during the hearings, Judge Reggie Walton, he's a Bush appointee, by the way, basically said that he wants to wait and see what Barr puts out. But then if he's not satisfied with the redactions in the Barr report, he'll go through the redacted materials to check his work and make sure they're appropriate.
Wow.
And he's going to do that in camera. That's where the in camera came from the corrections.
That's
which
incredible.
Means in his office alone, dick in the hand, justice porn. I think this decision might have actually had an impact on Barr, like I was talking about. Maybe it could be why we got a report that was less than 13% redacted when we were predicting 35, 40, 50%. And I was actually pleasantly surprised about that.
Yeah, I like that connection you made. I didn't even consider that. Well, I didn't know what happened, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense that he was spooked.
Yeah, oh, fuck. Because, that last report that he fucked around with in 1989 about the Manuel Noriega kidnapping, that full report didn't get subpoenaed until 3 years later after he was out of the job. So maybe he figured he can slow roll it or something, and he'd have time.
People will forget.
Maybe he'd already be appointed to the Supreme Court by the time we got the full Monty.
Yeah.
But
thank God for BuzzFeed.
When that judge came out and was like, I'm going to check your work, bro. He was like, fuck, I can't. That's probably why, maybe Rosenstein was like, we don't know. But, dude, high five to BuzzFeed.
Hell yes.
They've gone from listicles to, hard-hitting journalism.
Yeah. They need to do a fusion where they have, top 10 reasons we should impeach Donald Trump.
Yeah, number 4 may shock you.
Clickbait.
Amazing. Clickbait.
Number 4 will shock you. Anyway, these are the kinds of things that Trump wants to prevent the free press from doing. Okay? So keep your eye on the Assange case and any attacks on FOIA. If he tries to do an executive order limiting FOIA, because so much of the Mueller report sort of reads like a transcript of our podcast from day one. And any attack on FOIA, and a lot of that came out from FOIA requests.
Absolutely.
And the press, and journalism.
Yeah, the dossier, all that.
So those FOIA requests are important. And I dread that he will somehow use this Assange case to limit the freedom of the press.
Yeah, the trolls will come out too. I bet they're going to have a campaign against that.
Yeah, well, he could also, since he looks like he was in cahoots with WikiLeaks to some degree, right? I love WikiLeaks. If he can come out and come down hard on Assange, that's something that he can now point to and be like, look, see, I was down for getting him or something, even though he benefited greatly from stuff that he did.
Yeah, he's so wishy-washy.
Oh, sort of like a cover?
Yeah.
Like a beard?
It's a perfect chance for him to come out and actually do something that would even...
Kind of like when he said he declared the Iran defense, that whole thing,
right.
a terrorist organization when they helped fund his Azerbaijan hotel, maybe as a cover, maybe as a no, see? Or
yeah.
I'm tough on Russia, sanctions, which never actually really got deployed.
Yeah, or giving them a heads up about those missiles, yeah.
Yeah, people are a friend to him, or to him he considers them friends until they do something, or if not being friends with them could benefit him in some way.
Yeah.
Right, totally. Guys, we also learned Tuesday that one of the survivors of sex trafficking and abuse by American oligarch Jeffrey Epstein is suing Alan Dershowitz for defamation after he falsely claimed she had fabricated her accusations against Epstein. Her name is Virginia Giuffre. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Oh, there we go.
And this is so badass and brave of her, by the way. Not only is she saying Dershowitz defamed her, but he was also a participant in the sex trafficking and was one of the men Epstein forced her to have sex with. In response, Dershowitz said, I welcome the lawsuit. I've been looking for an opportunity to prove in court that this woman made up the whole story. I will prove she committed perjury. I've never met her, unquote. But if we've learned anything from listening to old rich white fuckers talk, they commonly say the opposite of what's real. So
yeah.
I'm sure they've met.
I hope in the process of him explaining it, he's like, no, see, I had sex with this young girl and this young girl and this young girl. Nowhere to be found.
Exactly.
That's my fantasy.
She wasn't
how that would go down.
Yeah. And this is so crazy. I wish I had her name right now, but there's a woman from Bangladesh who was just burned alive for reporting a sexual harassment claim against the headmaster of her school.
Yeah,
she's 18, 19 years old. So this is, I know in America, it's fortunately it's not that crazy, but it's a real struggle around the world, the whole idea of sexual harassment and all that. So
it's so awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many human rights violations.
Yeah, it's gross.
That are being completely ignored.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened before in past presidencies as well.
Right.
And we need to do better.
They're dismissing it so quickly. Even as someone who if you feel like you're falsely accused, Alan Dershowitz is a piece of shit, so I wouldn't be surprised. But it's just the way they attack the victim. I don't know. I feel like I can see why he'd be so upset, but it's just the way you talk about this. Even if you believe other victims, why would you make it? It's just bad for the whole discussion, I think. But that's why I think he's evil.
That's why I hope she gets justice, and I hope he goes down. That she's brave enough to bring this defamation suit to prove I wasn't lying. He is a sex offender. He's a convicted sex offender.
Mm-hmm.
And these other things did happen. Oh, and prove that you're a liar.
Right.
For trying to discredit my coming forward with the story. That's fucking awesome.
Absolutely.
What's really shitty, though, what's probably going to happen is there's not going to be enough evidence to decide one way or the other.
They have a witness. Her name is Maria Farmer, who worked for Epstein. She manned the front door at his New York mansion and also sold art for him, right? And she kept a record of the visitors. She said she witnessed underage girls that would be escorted upstairs, and that on a number of occasions, Dershowitz was upstairs when the underage girls went up. And last week, Senate Democrats demanded the Justice Department disclose the full results of its investigation into whether Trump's labor secretary, Alex Acosta, is guilty of misconduct when he let Epstein off the hook with basically a slap on the wrist for raping, abusing, and trafficking dozens of underage girls when he was the U.S. attorney in Florida. So maybe this witness will help provide. They've got affidavits, they've got witnesses.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
Just more witnesses.
Yeah, it's just historically so hard to prosecute. Like,
well, this isn't a criminal case. This is a civil suit.
Right.
A defamation suit.
Defamation, yeah.
So worst case scenario, what could happen then? Like, if
she gets a shitload of money and he's accused of lying publicly.
Well, good for her.
And all the discovery could come out and show that he was part of these parties.
Yeah.
What's the statute of limitations on that? On pursuing them criminally or him criminally?
For defamation?
No, for having sex with an underage girl.
Oh, Dershowitz? It's probably over.
Yeah. That's so goddamn ridiculous.
It should be life. There should be no statute of limitations on child abuse or rape.
But she'll get her day in court. That's amazing.
She certainly will. And let's see if Trump, who has also been known to be at Epstein sex parties, let's see if he pressures his peg boy, Bill Barr, not to cooperate with senators on this one. I'd like to see him try. I hope these women find justice.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we'll be right back with Hot Notes. Hey guys, we need to tell you about our Rothy's shoes. Literally the most comfortable flat I've ever worn. But there's so much more to these amazing shoes besides comfort. First of all, they're sleek and clean so you can wear them to work all day and then transition to happy hour or a nice dinner without having to change your shoes. And I love that kind of versatility. But that's not all. They're also sustainable, and that's really important to us at Mueller, she wrote. Rothy's are made out of recycled plastic water bottles. In fact, Rothy's has diverted over 25 million plastic bottles from our landfills and oceans. They're manufactured in a zero-waste factory, and they're shipped directly in a box, which drastically reduces packaging waste. They're machine washable, breathable, and non-slip. And Jordan, you wore yours to work.
Yeah, they were perfect when I used to serve. They were the best shoes I could wear. Like you said, they're not slippy at all, super comfortable, and I'd keep them on all day pretty much. They're good for anything you want to do.
Yeah, and they come in 4 styles too, the point, the sneaker, the loafer, and the flat. And they come in a bunch of awesome colors and patterns too. Jaleesa, you got the leopard print loafers. You wear them pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, I love them so much. I immediately feel so fancy when I slip them on. They make my whole outfit, and they're so comfortable.
Yeah, I ended up with the classic black flat. And they're just astoundingly comfortable. There was no break-in period. They're machine washable. I love breathable shoes. They're super simple. Seriously, the most comfortable shoes I've ever had. And Rothy's has an amazing deal for our listeners right now. Use code AG to get free shipping with no minimum. That's free shipping and free returns and exchanges on your Rothy's shoes, but trust me, you will not want to return them. So go to rothys.com, that's ROTHYS.com, and enter AG to get your new favorite flats and free shipping. You'll be glad you did. All right, welcome back. Hot Notes. All right, guys, today Jordan has a story about our allies down under. But first, Jaleesa, what's going on in Kentucky?
Oh, yeah. So in this week's edition of Squid Pro Crow, which I think deserves its own sound effect now, right? Like maybe we'll get like a crow cawing or a squid sound.
A splat.
Like an inking. Yes.
That was more like a cat. Yes.
Right. We'll figure it out.
Oh, that's right.
So on Monday, we learned that the Russian aluminum company Rusal wants to invest $200 million in an aluminum mill in Kentucky, of all places. And no offense to the people of Kentucky, I'm all for you guys getting more jobs, but I don't think it's a coincidence that all this Russian investing is happening in Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell's home state. I just feel like it's got their shitty little fingerprints all over it. So first of all, Rusal was just sanctioned by the U.S. like 5 minutes ago for having connections to Deripaska. And yet, soon after, Rusal's sanctions were randomly lifted, and Republicans claim it's because Deripaska reduced his stock in the company. But keep in mind, this aluminum deal would not be able to happen if Rusal was still under sanctions, which inspired the joke, why was bitch McTurtle in a hurry to lift the sanctions? Because they were Russian. Rim shot there.
Russian. Oh, Russian.
Classic. And as far as Rand Paul, wasn't he the one who went to Russia to hand deliver a letter from Trump to Putin?
Sure was.
Yeah, something like, "We go criming with me, check yes or no."
Yeah, I want to meet Putin. Can I give him a letter? Can
Exactly. My best friend. Basically, Paul and McConnell ran around like little errand boys for Trump, just asking, whose dick do I have to suck to get some sanctions lifted around here? And the company in charge of building the aluminum mill.
I ask that every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whose dick do I got to suck around here to get sanctions lifted?
Exactly. The company in charge of the aluminum mill, or in charge of building it in Kentucky, is called Brady Industries. So every now and then I'll be referring to the people involved in this scandal as the Brady Bunch, not to be confused with the Brody Bunch.
Yeah, no, different.
Yeah, and the CEO of Brady Industries, Craig Bouchard, said, quote, "Anyone that will help me rebuild Appalachia with prosperity, I will welcome. We're very cautious about observance of all rules, regulations, and laws. This is a non-controversial item for us. We're business people, not politicians." Which sounds nice and all until you realize this whole scheme is just Putin's way of paying back Republican candidates, which we can thank Citizens United for. Actually, we can thank Anthony Kennedy for that, right? So fuck Kennedy.
Also, fuck that guy for just being like complicit in
Brady?
doing business. Yeah.
What's his name, actually?
Bouchard, the head of that guy.
Yeah, Craig.
Craig. Those damn Craigs.
At least he doesn't have two first names. So
Exactly.
he's not going to go to jail on that crime.
Right. Not to mention, Brady Industries' main bank is none other than Deutsche Bank, which Kennedy's son was the head of real estate capital markets for, while also working closely with the Trump organization. And we already reported that Russia was benefiting from Trump's tariffs on aluminum, but this is just the cherry on top for them. Think about it. Trump already killed NAFTA. He stopped Canadian aluminum imports. He lifted the embargo on Russia and sanctioned Iran, all in preparation for this, and all to benefit Russia. And I feel like at this point, it's not so much a smoking gun as it is a large neon arrow with like flashing lights. Just says Russia.
It's a smoking nuclear reactor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And some people, may accuse us of wearing tinfoil hats or Russian aluminum hats. But Cohen says...
I think we're going to make all of our tinfoil hats out of Russian aluminum from now on.
New merch idea.
Just so you know.
Cohen says he also has evidence of Chinese money funding Republican campaigns while he was the deputy finance chair of the RNC. So it might not be too out of character for Team Trump and the Brady Bunch to do something like this. Either way, Brady and Russo said they've, quote, entered into a letter of intent and expect to sign a binding document in the second quarter of 2019. So we'll just see what happens with that.
Ugh.
I know.
So messed up.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off so much that there isn't any sort of legal proceeding that can punish that very clear quid pro quo.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, what a coincidence that right after they lifted sanctions, this huge deal is going down in which there's a 60-40 split on the whole project between Russia and Brady.
It's insane.
And the Treasury was working really hard to get those stocks and those shares transferred from Deripaska specifically to get him down to 40% so they could lift sanctions. But it really went to 12% went to his family and the rest is owned by the Kremlin. So it's still all oligarchy.
Totally.
Yeah.
We should make a list of potential new laws after all of this, just to give Congress a little suggestion, like a guide. Yeah, because we should have like a
Things
limit.
you should change.
Yeah, like a window after you're like released from sanctions, like you can't do deals for a little while, just like a probation period. Like regular people have that, like why don't rich people have that?
Yeah, or if there's some sort of a deal where you can sort of divest to get sanctions lifted, you can't give it to your family and friends.
Yeah,
or the
totally.
Kremlin.
Yeah, just like Cindy Yang gave those spas to her family. It's like you're still dirty.
Yeah, and I bet too that was a part of the Trump campaign's contacts with Russia in coordination, which I know wasn't proven, but these are my beans. My beans are that they're like, yeah, we're going to campaign on this idea of rebuilding a bunch of American jobs, and we're going to source stuff from Russia.
Yeah, they're going to definitely tell their constituents that it's for them, but it's just sketchy coming from that group. Because I'm all for jobs. I really am. Yeah. Like, it's just Russia? Like, why?
Well, we need to be creating American green jobs.
Exactly.
Not Russian aluminum jobs.
Exactly.
Right. And because they happen to be the number one aluminum producer basically right now in the world, I'm pretty sure that's true because it used to be China and now it's them. And they get to have that veil over this whole thing. It's like, oh, well, we're the top in the market. But it's like they've essentially, they kind of have what seems like a monopoly on the market right now.
Totally.
And they're gonna be able to just say that was their only choice or whatever.
Yeah, or it's just
like,
good
it's just
for the
business,
people.
just good business.
When it's, in fact, it really does seem like it's Putin just paying them back.
Yeah, and we need to find out if any of these guys are invested in this company or Brady Industries.
Yeah, I guess Brady actually is supposed to be taxpayer taxpayer owned somehow. That's trippy to me. Like when I was reading on it, apparently like the guy who was the mayor of Kentucky or whatever, governor I guess it would be, he made it so that the taxpayers own the company. And I thought that was interesting. I wanted to look more into it just to figure out how that works. But yeah, like it seems like a weird diversion tactic. Like how do the taxpayers own a company? Is that normal?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I don't think there's anything illegal about any of it, and that's the frustrating.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you for that.
For sure.
Really scary information. Jordan, what do you have about our good friend from Australia?
Yes. So vindication is what I have. Australian officials came out this week saying that they're ready to corroborate intelligence that proves that conversation between Papadop and Alexander Downer, in which Papadop drunkenly exposes, allegedly drunkenly, that part maybe not be true, but it seems like he was, right?
Yeah.
He exposes that Russia had dirt on Hillary, and this corroborates that did in fact occur. And this comes after BuzzFeed has been in a 15-month-long FOI, just Freedom of Information battle, over getting those documents, and the Australian government up until this week had refused to confirm or give any details about the matter, citing national security reasons. But now, since the Mueller report's coming to an end, they said they'd be comfortable releasing this 3-page cable, as it's called, which is a fun, old-timey sounding thing.
Yeah, see?
Yes, it's okay. I'm going to send you a cable. That details, this cable, 3-page cable details the meeting, and it also includes the calendar invite. So I feel like when we talked about this in the beginning, we kind of conceived it as like some sloppily put together meeting, sort of, and it turns out, it was very much a planned meeting that was supposed to be a talk between Australia and Papadop to talk about foreign policy and what Trump's ideas on foreign policy were.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting. That's revealed in this article, so that's a surprise to me. In an Australian official, they said release of the full contents of this document could reasonably be expected to damage the bilateral relationship with the United States and relationships with other partners with which we engage closely. This would significantly impact the department's ability to prosecute Australia's foreign policy interests, end quote. So it is redacted, and that's really it. Yeah, you can put that in your pipe and smoke it. Papa Flop. That's my new nickname for him.
Papa Flop. Hell yes.
Papa Flop.
Let's hear it for BuzzFeed FOIA.
Yeah. Thank you,
Another
Jordan.
one.
Yeah, totally.
Number 4 will shock you. All right, cool. Guys, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, we're going to get into the redacted version of the Mueller report. It is here. It came out Thursday morning, as we all know. It's 2 volumes. One is about Russian interference, and the other is about obstruction of justice. It's 448 pages long. 12.4% of it is redacted. Far fewer redactions than we were expecting. We're happy about that. That's why I'm talking about that Reggie Walton decision, thinking, maybe that BuzzFeed FOIA case had a last-minute impact on how much was redacted from the report. 61% of the redactions are because of open and ongoing investigations. 61%. Wow. But, yeah, I'm sure it's all wrapped up. We can just change the name of our podcast. It's totally fine. 24% is grand jury material. 7% is for investigative technique. And 6% is for personal privacy. So I'd like to go over some key concepts with you guys. Keep in mind, though, we're going to do a full analysis in a series starting this week, much like we do our book club reviews. As soon as we can get it recorded, we'll start putting them out immediately. So look for those episodes. Patrons, you'll get them a day early, but we definitely want to talk about the key points here. Since the report just came out, we've had a couple days to sit on it, digest it. It's delicious. Talk about them and what maybe what some of them mean, some of the standout things that jumped out to me at first, and some of the things that seem to be sort of floating around in the air this weekend, like lovely balloons.
Oh, yeah.
That you pop and it rains joy.
Nice.
First, volume 1, page 1, right at the outset. It sounds like I'm just going to read the whole thing.
In the beginning.
So Mueller lays out his findings, and this is the entire sentence that Barr chopped up and put in his first summary letter. If you remember, the sentence in Barr's memo started with a capital T in brackets, which indicated to us that there was a front part of that sentence that was missing that probably began with the word although.
Mm-hmm. Love those brackets.
Yeah.
And we were correct. Here is the sentence in its entirety. Although the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
Nice.
That's the whole thing. Although there was a lot of collusion, there was not illicit coordination that rose to the level of criminality, is what it's saying. And that's what we thought it was going to say.
Yeah.
Although there was a shitload of fucked up shit, we had that one tiny link from the chain was missing in our ability to charge a crime in interference activities. Nowhere does it say no collusion. And that is something you can take with you forward on into modernity when Trump supporters give you the no collusion line. Ask them for a screenshot of the Mueller report that says no collusion.
Yeah, we should use our stamp, our no collusion stamp.
Show me, yeah, one of our patrons sent us a no collusion stamp. It's pretty awesome. We're going to have to start using that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, ask them to show you. Show me the line in the Mueller report that says no collusion. I'll wait. It's not there. And Mueller even addressed the word collusion in his report. And here's the quote from there. In evaluating whether evidence about collective action of multiple individuals constituted a crime, we applied the framework of conspiracy law, not the concept of collusion. In so doing, the office recognized that the word collude was used in communications with the acting attorney general, confirming certain aspects of the investigation's scope, and that the term has frequently been invoked in public reporting about the investigation. But collusion is not a specific offense or theory of liability found in the United States Code, nor is it a term of art in federal criminal law. For those reasons, the office's focus in analyzing questions of joint criminal liability was on conspiracy as defined in federal law. In connection with that analysis, we addressed the factual question whether members of the Trump campaign coordinated, a term that appears in the appointment order, with Russian election interference activities. Like collusion, coordination does not have a settled definition in federal criminal law. We understood coordination required an agreement, tacit or express, between the Trump campaign and the Russian government on election interference. That requires more than two parties taking actions that were informed by or responsive to the other's actions and interests. We applied the term coordination in that sense when stating in the report that the investigation did not establish that the Trump campaign coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. So
well written, man.
Lots of collusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Much
and also
collusion.
very easy to understand. I really appreciate that they wrote it like that.
Absolutely.
Right. So even though it is 448 pages, and I think Barr is trying to keep people from reading it because it's so long, and that's why he didn't release the summaries, they wrote it in it's got a lot of legal terms in it, but it's written for a layperson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who's going to do the first Mueller report Twitter account where each Twitter tweet is just another summary?
It reads like a Seth Abramson thread.
Yeah, but that's like our Twitter account a little bit.
It is just thousands and thousands of tweets long.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the only time collusion is referred to in this report is when the president says it or tweets it.
Yeah.
Or a president's ally uses the term. And in a piece this week by Asha Rangappa in the New York Times, she talks about how Trump supporters who fell for the no collusion marketing disinformation campaign fell for an old Russian propaganda trick called reflexive control, which is, quote, a technique of psychological manipulation through disinformation. The idea is to feed your adversary a set of assumptions that will produce a predictable response. That response, in turn, furthers a goal that advances your interests by luring your opponent into agreeing with your initial assumptions. You can control the narrative and ultimately the outcome in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Best of all, the outcome is one in which your adversary has voluntarily acceded. And this is exactly what happened with much of the American public in the course of Mueller's investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Old Russian tricks, and you fell for them.
Yep, and lubing the truth. I think that played a large part maybe in the redactions as well, too, because it's assuming that Barr was redacting things he shouldn't have redacted. If Giuliani hadn't lubed the truth, then they probably would have redacted even more.
Yeah.
That's true. Lubing the truth. On page 10, the report goes into some of the difficulties they had with people, in that some invoked the Fifth Amendment, which Trump has said only guilty people do. Some claimed executive privilege, and some lied to the special counsel, which is a crime, but special counsel only charged some of them as crimes.
Right.
It doesn't spell out why they didn't charge all the liars with lies.
Mm-hmm.
On page 174, we see some redactions in Mueller's considerations in charging Russians that interfered with the election, which says to me there may be additional or similar charges against Russians. On page 185 is the argument Mueller makes about considering charging crimes surrounding the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting and whether or not the documents promised had intrinsic monetary value. And this is the part I still don't understand, and I would ask him about if I were in Congress. But Mueller says that in light of the government's substantial burden of proof on issues of intent, which is knowing and willful, and the difficulty establishing the value of the offered information, the evidence probably wouldn't be sufficient to sustain a conviction. So the crime of conspiracy is the one they couldn't establish a high burden of proof of intent for. But the thing we'd always thought was going to be chargeable was that this was an in-kind campaign donation,
right,
something of value from a foreign government. Specifically a foreign adversary, because the documents have value, and that's a crime. So what Mueller is saying is they couldn't determine the value of the dirt on Hillary Clinton, so he couldn't charge Don Jr. with that crime, and I just don't understand that. Moreover, Mueller concluded that Don Jr. was pretty much too stupid to have willful intent in this case, which is known as mens rea, and it's different from ignorance of the law. It's just ignorance.
They should have a Price is Right episode for the emails to figure out what the price is worth. Just guess. Just give it a number.
How much are these worth without going over? Even if they just said that they were worth the paper they were printed on.
That still would have been illegal.
It would have had a value.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they didn't assign a value to it. Maybe they just thought that they would have a real hard time and that would be a sticking point in court.
Yeah. Or maybe that's just like a slope they don't want to go down. Or I shouldn't say slope, maybe more a precedent they don't want to set.
Just less bulletproof, right? And kind of a creepy precedent. But I want to ask him, why?
Good question.
Why didn't you just say it was worth 5 cents and get on with it?
Because Hillary would be offended. I'm worth more than that. My emails are priceless.
Priceless. And then on page 197, Mueller addresses the infamous Jeff Sessions line during his confirmation hearing. You hear it every week in our opening sequence. I did not have communications with the Russians. And Mueller determines that Sessions understood the question narrowly and that there was not enough evidence that Sessions willfully lied. The investigation, though, did confirm Sessions met multiple times with Russians. So, yeah, but I guess when he was asked the questions, have you ever met with any Russians? For some reason, Jeff Sessions took it to mean, have I had, substantive meetings with Russians about specific things? And he's like, no, I did not meet with them for that.
Right.
And so he was able to,
slip through that one. Yeah.
All right. Then we get to Volume 2, and Volume 2 is the best volume. On page 2, we learn why Mueller didn't come to a conclusion on obstruction. As you guys know, we had said, well, here, listen to my beans from last week's episode. It's called Mueller If You're Listening. Here's what I think. Here's my beans to that. I think that he had an answer on obstruction of justice. If he didn't, he would have had to interview Trump because you have to get to intent. But maybe he had such overwhelming evidence he didn't need to get that interview. But the Department of Justice does not allow you to bring criminal charges for obstruction of justice. And in the past, there is precedent that shows that the special counsel or special investigator or special prosecutor, whatever you call them at that point, would kick that question over to Congress because you can't indict a sitting president because of DOJ policy. And we know Mueller probably follows rules. And that's exactly what the Mueller report indicates. So beans came true. And check out what Jaleesa says right after that.
Yeah, and that means hopefully when Trump's no longer president, which will happen, that somebody will, arrest him after that.
And Jaleesa, your beans came true because Mueller says that in his report.
Yay!
That while he can't charge the president, despite his crimes, the president can be charged once he leaves office. So well done there.
Nice.
Good job, team.
Thank you. Yeah. Go.
Go. Mueller then says that if he had confidence that Trump did not commit an obstruction of justice or commit obstruction of justice, he would have said so. But based on the facts and the law, he couldn't say that. And therefore, while he couldn't charge him with a crime, because the Department of Justice doesn't allow him to charge him with a crime, the investigation doesn't exonerate him. And that's the massive takeaway here. Mueller then goes on to lay out 10 instances of obstruction of justice. That's a cafefe of obstructions.
Yeah, it's a BuzzFeed list for you.
And he offers the 3 requirements to meet the standard to charge criminal obstruction of justice, which are an obstructing action, nexus to an official proceeding, not a judicial proceeding.
There we go, yeah.
Nexus to an official proceeding, and intent. And Mueller lays it all out there, basically offering everything anyone could ever need to get a clean, bulletproof conviction on criminal obstruction of justice. And there are 7 of those 10 obstruction of justice instances that meet all 3 requirements.
Wow.
So
charge that shit.
Yes.
7 counts of criminal obstruction of justice. And the reason he didn't charge him is because he couldn't, because he follows the rules.
That's crazy. And we knew it, though. We called it. That's true.
That's what we said.
I'm just glad it's validating. That's
right, because I said I think the only reason they didn't interview Trump is because they had plenty. They didn't need to get to his intent, and the only reason he didn't charge him with the crime is because he couldn't.
The law,
Boom, there it is.
I do think that's weird, though, that he didn't push more to interview Trump, because if he could have interviewed him, he could have had more information on if he could establish intent or not.
Maybe he wants Congress to interview Trump.
I guess so.
Yeah,
but I really wonder why he didn't. I mean, I know it was a fucking nightmare just to try to get them to even give written answers.
For sure, but he could have forced him.
He is very thorough, but he also doesn't waste time. And I think that, and this is just beans, this is total theory, but and based on what little I know about this man, but if he's got 7 full counts of obstruction of justice with meeting all 3 requirements to meet criminality, illicit criminality of obstruction of justice, you don't need any more.
Right, because Trump wasn't planning on doing it anytime soon. So the whole not wasting time thing about Mueller, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It also says a lot about what his intent was for the report. He wanted to basically get things to the threshold where he could pass them off to congressional investigators or other districts, I think, and they could run with it.
Yeah.
And I think Mueller also said in his report that there was just a lot of delays and it was a lot of pushback, and it was just like, all right, you know what? Fuck you.
Definitely a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
And he also maybe didn't want to risk poking the bear too hard and getting himself fired.
Yeah.
So could have been a lot of different things.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Can you imagine what Trump's team was like when he relented on getting an interview? They're like, really? Okay.
Exactly.
Don't
sure.
do it. And then finally, I wanted to touch on Appendix D. Actually, this isn't finally. There's a few more points. And that seems to indicate more indictments are coming. It says, quote, during the investigation, the office periodically identified evidence of potential criminal activity that was outside the scope of the special counsel's jurisdiction established by the acting attorney general. So after consultation with the Office of the Deputy Attorney General, the office referred that evidence to appropriate law enforcement authorities, principally other components of the Department of Justice and the FBI. Those referrals listed alphabetically by subjects are summarized below. So that's what the thing says. And then he lists out 14 cases referred out, 2 of which we know about, Greg Craig and Michael Cohen. Then 12 more that are redacted because they're still open and ongoing. And those are where the Fantasy Indictment League points are going to come from.
Yes.
That's the Fantasy Indictment League points farm.
Yeah, no further indictments.
Yeah, totally. Exonerated.
Thank
no
you.
indictment. They wouldn't have been referred out if there wasn't, I don't think, sufficient evidence to successfully prosecute, knowing Mueller's super high standards and displeasure for wasting anyone's time. So I'm wondering if that's where the counterintelligence stuff is, because Natasha Bertrand, now writing for Politico, says this week in a piece, reminding us that counterintelligence matters are usually referred back to the FBI. And Congress wants to know how many of the redacted referred investigations involve Trump, like maybe his finances or counterintelligence, and if any of those offenses are impeachable offenses, which is why Nadler has subpoenaed the full Mueller report and all the underlying evidence, even though the DOJ is saying that's premature and stupid. And don't forget, Trump's taxes are likely part of that underlying evidence.
Yes.
So. But by far my favorite part of the report so far, could change tomorrow, is what Trump said when he was told Rosenstein had appointed a special counsel. He said, "Oh my God, this is the end of my presidency. I'm..." Incidentally, if you want that ringtone, just search for it by name. It's called Manafort is ... Proceeds go to the Voices of Our City Choir, a choir for homeless people in San Diego. They recorded that for us, so thanks to them. A couple more points of interest include a bit about Sarah Fuckface Sanders, Fuckabee, who lied to the American people when she said that she talked to countless folks at the FBI who had lost confidence in Comey. It says, quote, Sanders acknowledged to investigators that her comments were not founded on anything.
Nothing.
So that's it. Yeah. So now there's increased calls from the public and some White House staffers for her to resign. So she's out on a publicity tour basically lying about her lie. I think she owes the press an apology. She should crawl back into whatever hole when she came. She's been gaslighting us for 2 years, and now we have a report that verifies what we've been saying all along. It's extremely vindicating to have proof that we weren't crazy. And the crazy liberals we've been made out to be, the angry Democrats,
right?
With pitchforks,
aluminum
and fire,
tin,
aluminum tin, Rousseau tinfoil hat. And finally, people are pissed at Senator Barr, the Republican chair of the Intel Committee. The Mueller report says that he provided the White House with information on the FBI Russia investigation after a private briefing by the FBI to the Gang of Eight by James Comey, and that Barr did this within a week of briefing. According to notes by Annie Donaldson, Barr told the White House about the existence of 4 to 5 targets, including Flynn, Manafort, Page, and Papadopoulos. Personally, I think he needs to recuse himself from chairing the Senate Intelligence Committee now, and we should call our senators to push for that.
Oh, yes.
So where do we go from here? As Jaleesa and Mueller have pointed out, we can't indict Trump for obstruction until he's out of office. And the statute of limitations for obstruction of justice is 5 years, meaning if Trump gets reelected, he avoids facing justice. So we would either need to impeach him, though we run the risk of Pence pardoning him if we impeach him, or we vote them out in 2020. And as you all know, I've been holding off on an impeachment call until the Mueller report came out because of the potential implications of failed removal after impeachment leading to maybe his reelection. Well, I've seen the report, and I'm on the fence now. I think it's, at the very least, the House Judiciary should open an impeachment inquiry to determine if they'll move forward with impeachment. And this would establish the judicial proceeding needed to meet the prerequisite for getting the grand jury material to the House Judiciary under Rule 6E. So we'd be able to get that. But the fact remains the president committed a crime 7 times.
Yeah.
Felonies. These are felonies, which isn't even a requirement for impeachment. Trump has already committed several impeachable offenses. Like,
overachiever.
like abuse of power when he dangled pardons or when he pressured the Postmaster General to double Amazon shipping expenses as retribution for the Washington Post, the way the Washington Post was reporting on him. And in case you missed it, Romney is totally grossed out by what I read, what he read in the Mueller report. And he said on Twitter, "I'm sickened at the extent and pervasiveness of dishonesty and misdirection by individuals in the highest office of the land, including the president." He is in the highest office.
Yeah, he also in me.
Yeah. I'm also appalled that, among other things, fellow citizens working on a campaign for president welcomed help from Russia, including information that had been illegally obtained, that none of them acted to inform American law enforcement, and that the campaign chairman was actively promoting Russian interests in Ukraine. Cool story, bro. Can you get 20 of your Republican buddies in the Senate
seriously
on board with removing him? Because that's the only way to get him out of office.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be about Dems or Republicans or even Trump. It would be about Congress doing its constitutional duty to hold the president accountable to ensure it won't happen again. We set a bad precedent if we let him get away with this, let him continue to think he's above the law and act as though he is.
Yeah, we heard Romney.
Prophecy.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've heard him talk before. Like, I really would love to see him do something this time.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
He's but a white foal right now, though.
And the other way to get Trump out of office is to vote him out, because what's clear is that Russia attacked us, and not only did Trump not defend us, he's basically joined the other side and continues to leave us and our democracy vulnerable in favor of his own financial gain.
Trump's the kind of guy, like, if his girlfriend was getting beat up, he'd like join in and start beating his girlfriend up. Like, he's just the worst.
Mom boot party. Remember, friends, we will be doing a deep dive into the report in short order. Patrons, you'll get those early and ad-free, but we're definitely releasing this to the public because of the importance of getting the information out there in a digestible manner. I wish we had those summaries that were written for us, all part of Barr's disinformation campaign about this report. He should be impeached. He should be charged with obstruction of justice, and I hope House Dems make a criminal referral on him for his active, willful participation in obscuring the findings of the Mueller investigation.
Yeah.
I'm tired of this shit, bro.
Jaleesa, what do you think about the impeachment question?
Well, like, if it's worth it, like, I'm for it. The risks seem to be there, but I don't think we have a choice morally. Yeah, with the Mueller report, I feel like our backs are against the wall, just like Warren. I think, like, she's smart. She knows it's going to be a battle, but she knows her base is what they want to see something done now. So I'm with it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I also wanted to, really quick, if I can, just point out how annoying it is that in Barr, I just read Russia, in Barr's 4-page memo, when he first starts talking about, I'm sorry, the report is all fucked up.
It's all good. It's all real life.
When he first starts talking about the Mueller report in the press conference, he comes right out saying that it's such a great report because it unveils everything that Russia did to undermine our elections. And he wants to focus on that and how that's primarily what the report is about, right? But then before, Trump wouldn't even admit that they did meddle in our elections. And that was a huge talking point for them at that point. So now they're hiding behind something that they used to say didn't even happen, and they believe Putin on it, and they're trying to use that as a shield. It's like the most low-life shit.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's called moving the goalposts, and they do it every day, and that's a really good point that you bring up. All right, guys, we will be right back with Sabotage, Fantasy Indictment League, and some clips from our live show in Hollywood as we talk details on the Mueller report with Elizabeth McLaughlin from Resistance Live and Jack Bryan, co-writer, producer, and director of the Active Measures documentary, now available on Hulu. We'll be right back. Don't you just love warm alcohol? Well, neither did Dylan, the founder of Brewmate, and that's why he made it Brewmate's mission to shake up the beverage industry for the better. Brewmate has created an amazing line of insulated drinkware that not only looks good, but keeps your beverage ice cold all day long. And whether you're a beer person, or if you prefer wine like me, maybe you like spirits, whatever the drink, Brewmate makes sure it's the perfect temperature to the last sip. For me, I hated opening a bottle of wine and trying to keep it fresh. And, at the proper temperature, long enough for me to enjoy a second glass. So I got the Brewmate Wine-Solator with 2 uncorked extra-large wine glasses because, let's be honest, when you're reading about everything this administration has done, you're going to want an extra-large insulated glass of wine. These sets come in a ton of colors and patterns, and because we love camping, I personally take these camping. I got the wood grain, and that makes them look like they're made of walnut, which is really cool. They're very beautiful, and I can pour my entire bottle of wine into the Wine-Solator, and it keeps my rosé cold for up to 24 hours without having to refrigerate it. I also drink reds, and the Wine-Solator keeps the summer heat away from your red wine, which is great. And the wine glasses are awesome because they have a sippy lid to prevent spilling, which is perfect for me because when we went camping like a week and a half ago, there's never a nice flat spot to set your wine down by the fire. So I get my Brewmate uncorked glass full of rosé, I set it down on an uneven log, and it fell over, but thanks to the spill-proof lid, not a drop was wasted. And since they're not made of glass, you can bring them to any glass-free zone, like poolside. So I travel with these things so that I can pour my wine into the Wine-Solator, take the spill-proof glasses with me to the hot tub, and my rosé stays cold until it's gone. So between the wine line of drinkware and the Brewmate beer drinkware, oh, and also the amazing variety of flasks for spirits, Brewmate makes the perfect gift for Mother's Day, and then of course dads and grads. So I'm getting my mom a Wine-Solator with the infinity cup top. You just pour your bottle in, using the funnel that they give you, and attach the cup to the top, so you have an endless glass of wine. It's amazing. She's gonna love it for poolside lounging. Do not settle for warm alcohol. Chill out with your favorite drinks all day with Brewmate. Visit brewmate.com and enter code AG to get 15% off your first order. That's 15% off your first order when you go to brumate.com and enter code AG. You'll be glad you did. All right, you guys ready for Sabotage?
Yes.
All right, so let's see. The P tapes could be real.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, according to the Mueller report, Cohen, it seems like, let's see here. There's a guy named Ritz Kalatze. He told Mueller that the tapes referred to compromising tapes of Trump rumored to be held by persons associated with Russian real estate conglomerate Crocus Group, which had helped host the 2013 Miss Universe pageant. And according to the report, the pageant was owned by Trump for years, by the way. Cohen told the special counsel that he spoke to Trump about the issue after receiving Ritz Kalatze's text about these tapes being a thing. And so Cohen knew about it, and so Cohen probably told Trump about the P-tapes. So when Comey sat down in that real uncomfortable P-tape discussion...
Their first meeting, yeah.
Their first meeting, Trump already knew the P-tapes could be out there. That's why he immediately had rebuttals ready to go.
Yep.
So... again, we still don't know if this is real. A lot of the reporting also says that it could, that they don't exist. They could be totally fake. But I think with that Lanny Davis tweet about Cohen being able to fill in the blanks, I'm wondering if it's not the PP tapes.
I can't wait to find out.
And why are you holding them back so long, bro?
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So that's a neat sabotage. Woohoo! All right, you ready for
such strange things we hold out hope for now.
I know. What have we become? All right, guys, ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yes.
I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Hold it, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down, I'm gonna be indicted!
All right, guys, who picks first this time? Jordan, I think you're first.
Ooh.
And who's going to be able to take some notes?
I can take... Oh, whoever's quicker.
Sure.
I'm going to pull it up and we'll just see who wins.
Okay.
Unless you're ready. My phone's kind of slow.
Sure, I got it. I can do it.
Cool.
All right, okay. Jordan, who's your first pick?
My first pick is Assange.
You stole mine. Yeah, they're going to question him, and he might lie, and they might definitely add charges if they don't try to charge him for something associated with conspiracy or espionage.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to go with Don McGahn.
Ooh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like there's going to be stuff that pops up with the report now. Like, they're going to probably want to interview him or get something done. I don't know. It might not be an indictment, but like a plea deal, that still counts, right?
You could do a McGahn plea deal being released.
Yeah. Could make it. Yeah, plea deal, please.
All right. I'm going to go with AMI.
Oh, okay.
Round 2.
Yes. I'm doing Trump inaugural.
Nice.
I'm holding out for that so bad.
Holding out for a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do Weiselberg.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do Pecker.
Mm-hmm.
You've selected Pecker.
Okay. I'm doing WikiLeaks.
Cool.
Nice. Committed.
Yes, very committed.
I'll do Sherry Dillon, director of Cam-An, or former director.
No, that's Brittany Kaiser.
Brittany Kaiser. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's who I meant. Sherry Dillon. Oh, I just get... Okay, so...
Sherry Dillon's a Trump lawyer.
Yeah. Weren't you guys going to pick either of them? Because...
Oh, no.
Pick one.
Yeah. I'll go with Sherry Dillon.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll come back around.
Okay.
I'm going to do Corsi.
Plea deal?
Nope. He said no to a plea deal. He can go fuck himself.
Yeah, but then remember he was being kind of like weirdly cooperative for a second, sort of, and then like he keeps being wishy-washy.
I think they'll just charge him. I think it's been handed off, and they'll just charge him.
Yeah.
In D.C., U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. Zelensky's there now, one of Mueller's team.
Mm-hmm.
He came from Maryland, and then after he left the Mueller team, he went into work for Jesse Liu in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, round 4?
Yeah, I'm going to do Credico plea deal only because I have no idea what the real story is there.
Yeah. I'm
Sounds
curious.
good.
Now I'll do Brittany Kaiser.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll do Dylan Howard.
All right.
And final round.
Final round, I'm going to say Donald Trump Jr.
I'm going to have some fun. Julian Assange's cat.
For what crime?
I don't know. That's a good question. Oh, the crime of being adorable, probably.
Being adorable. I like it. I'm going to go with Felix Sater as my last one.
Nice.
All right, guys, that is the Fantasy Indictment League. That's how we do it. If you want to join the Fantasy Indictment League, you got to be a patron. You go to our closed Facebook group called Friends of Justice, and you can post your picks Sunday night after the show drops. All right, guys, we're going to take we're not going to take a break. You know what? We're just going to go right into some of the clips that we came up with from the Hollywood show at Largo. We had such a good time. Thank you guys for coming out to that. It was truly, truly amazing. And Jack Bryan, co-writer, producer, director of Active Measures, a documentary, he was there. And Elizabeth McLaughlin, host of Resistance Live, she was there as well. So I hope you guys enjoy these clips, and we'll be right back. I think it's going to be a really great show. I think you're going to have a good time. We've got Jack Bryan here, director of Active Measures.
Yes.
Greg Proops sends his apologies for not being able to be here. He has eye surgery.
You got to see.
Yeah.
See the truth. You
got to be able to see what that hat says.
You do.
Yeah. For safety.
Yes.
But right now, I want to bring out our third panelist. You guys, she's the host of Resistance Live, an amazing lady, Elizabeth McLaughlin. We seriously can't express how wonderful it is to be part of this. But Elizabeth, I wanted to ask you a little bit about today. Kind of your top line reactions from the drop, big drop, big.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so a couple of things that I feel like we just have to say relentlessly. The thing that is so key about everything that we saw today, both volumes of the report, is that it exonerates no one. And all that propaganda that's been floating around, everything that Bill Barr said this morning at 9:30 is just a load of bullshit, frankly. It's just not true. I mean, literally not true.
Yeah, you've always been on the impeachment.
Yeah, I've always been on the impeachment train, but also was on the indictment train, to be fair about it. I mean, I have said, and now I have to walk this back, but there were a couple of times I said last year that I thought that there was a possibility that Mueller would go beyond the policy of the DOJ and actually maybe take a gambit at indicting the president. Very plainly, he did not do that. But what I will say, because I read the whole report, those of you who saw my broadcast this morning know that I was up at 5 a.m. and when it dropped, my printer was burning paper. I read the whole thing, and particularly the obstruction section, volume 2 of that report, it is a roadmap that was written start to finish for the purposes of impeachment proceedings. It lays it all out. And the thing I like about it the most, that's, to me, the most significant aspect of that part of the report is that he actually really went to town on all the legal justifications for why the president shouldn't be indicted, and shouldn't be investigated. And there's a whole section that basically just states, here's all the reasons why Congress engaging in an investigation and impeachment proceedings isn't going to interfere with his Article 2 authority. And it's right there. Like, Mueller basically was like, hey, I'm going to cut off at the knees all of the justifications for Trump's lawyers for why this shouldn't happen.
Nice.
So it's a gorgeous piece of work, honestly, from a lawyer's standpoint.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring you out here because I wanted to talk a little bit about the active measures aspect of this, because I have to know what the fuck is going on with Barr. Why would he do this? And I'm wondering, did he maybe visit Russia recently, go to the Ritz-Carlton?
Well,
does Emerdata have some? Which is, by the way, the assholes formerly known as Cambridge Analytica. Did they send a prostitute his way and get taped? Like, what is he doing this? It's blowing my mind. Is he compromised or something?
Well, I think for me to understand the Barr thing, I think what's important is to go back to 1992. Barr is the Attorney General, and HW is dealing with the Iran-Contra scandal. And he's thinking about pardoning some of the people involved. And Barr recommends that he pardons everybody involved and do it the day before Christmas, 1992. And so we cut to now, day before Easter weekend and Passover, and he is releasing this. So I think that Barr is just a hack and has been since the 90s. And,
oh, yeah.
I think he's a cleanup guy. I think that his intention and his reason for being brought in was pretty obvious, was to clean this thing up. He had done it once before, and I think that it's not going to be as successful this time.
Well, and that's because I think that the time between what he did in 89 with that Office of Legal Counsel memo that he bullshitted his way through to be able to kidnap Manuel Noriega, and he had a nice, I'll just give you a summary. I'll summarize the top conclusion, but he just exactly what he did this time. But the time between that and the time the memo came out was 3 years. He was gone. He was out of the job. That's finally when they subpoenaed the shit, and everybody got to see it. This, I think, though, because of who we were talking about a little bit earlier with Judge Walton, I don't think it's going to be 3 years before we see the entire report. And so that's a huge risk to come out, even just from last week to this week, between what he said this morning and what happened 10 minutes later. It's just so disparate. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and you and I were talking earlier about the fact that actually the redactions in the report are much slimmer than what we expected they were going to be. I honestly thought it was going to be just like Zebra City today. It's not. I mean, that's what's really crazy about it, is there's something about what Judge Walton said that probably had a chilling effect on Barr's willingness to kind of redact more, because there's a lot more he could have taken out of there. This whole thing of I'm going to redact embarrassing material was what everyone was really worried about, and there's almost no redactions in there for that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, 12.6% of the report is redacted. We thought it would be 35, 40, 50.
Yeah.
And it might have been until that Walton hearing happened. And
yeah, and
might have unredacted.
Yeah, and that's kind of why it feels like a dump to me, where it just feels like he went out there, I mean, pretty clearly went out there early on as a means of sort of poo-pooing it. The 4-page letter was the same thing, and then to just pile it all out as a way of, at a time when people are not going to be watching the news, as a way of just overloading it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But, I just have to wonder, I can't figure out why he would risk that. I mean, I know he did before.
Well, but what's he risking? I mean, he doesn't live in a place. He doesn't live in L.A. There's a huge portion of the country that is going to appreciate what he did and look after him for it.
How many Trump towers in Moscow were there?
There was.
I mean, there's never none
one made. The most recent one would have been the largest skyscraper in Europe. That was the deal that was being discussed during the campaign. But since the 90s, they've been discussing it. And I think that there was references in the 80s, but seriously since the 90s, certainly with Lorber, actually. And, yeah, that's been a conversation they've been having for a long time.
And this is one of their things that Russians do. They dangle what they want in front of you until they get what they want, and then I'd say, I get my documents, I tell you, go fuck yourself.
Absolutely. And also, it's part of a compromising process, that if I can get you to do something illegal along the way of you getting something that you want, then I have you. Then you're compromised already.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I was just in Belgium. We were talking to a couple members of the European Parliament there. They hosted a screening of the movie. And I sort of asked them, like, what's the trigger point? Like, what's the point where you guys realize, like, oh no, like, the sort of fascism, for lack of a better word, is on the rise in the world in a really bad way? And they were like, it was when Donald Trump got elected.
Well, and this is the danger of, if, God forbid, Pelosi doesn't take this ball and run with it, he's going to be above the law.
Yeah.
I mean, he thinks he's above the law already. We've seen it in the last couple of weeks alone in ways that we haven't before. And when he thinks there's no accountability and the law doesn't apply to him, he's going to do whatever he wants to.
Yeah, he feels invincible.
Yeah. But this is one of the times where living in a liberal district is actually a benefit, because y'all can call up your congressperson. And listen, I've talked to a bunch of members of Congress on this. One of the reasons that they don't push it as hard as I would like them to is that they don't think that they have constituent support. That they don't think people care. And so if people in this room, people listening to this, if you have a congressperson who might be interested in this, call them and tell them that you care about this, because they actually will listen.
Definitely.
There was discussion about this on Twitter all day today with the 18-year-old kid in the criminal justice system who is being accused of obstruction, and whether or not a person of color who's trying to get his friend not to talk about the deal they did or whatever the allegations are, that person is going to go away for 35 years.
Oh yeah, they're
right?
fucked. Yeah,
they're fucked.
And so that kid has mens rea.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think we have to look at everything that's happening, through the lens of privilege here. And there's been a lot of discussions about this just in terms of the sentencing. And as somebody who used to do white-collar litigation, this kind of stuff drives me crazy. When we talk about criminal justice reform and what needs to come next, this has to be a part of it. We can't have people, skating on, how much did Papadopoulos do? 6 days in prison or something like that? When he's the guy who got drunk in the bar in London and told Australian intelligence that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton before any of it was public, that's what he gets, and his cooperation is not highly extensive. Did we talk about this thing about the ducks this week? With the head of the CIA?
What the duck?
So, the murder that took place in London, do you guys, this whole thing with the poisoning so it turns out that the head of the CIA has got, and there was a big article about it, has figured out how to play the president. And the way that she played the president to get him to impose some form of sanctions as a result of this was that she showed him pictures of the dead ducks that had also been poisoned at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that the Russians had poisoned their spy. And this is the whole reason why it's incredibly important when all of us talk about this that we don't fall into even the remote suggestion that the whole first section of the report in any way exonerates the president.
Mm-hmm. Nope.
Because it doesn't.
You guys are awesome. Thank you to Jack Bryan, even though you have two first names, Elizabeth McLaughlin from Resistance Live. All right, guys, that's our show. Thanks to everyone who came out to the Largo again. Such an amazing event, incredible night. So fun meeting our patrons at the super secret meetup after the show. Thank you for traveling from Indiana, Chicago, Seattle, Phoenix, Portland. Just so amazing to meet all of you. I will never forget it as long as I live. And thank you all for voting for us for the Webby. They'll announce those Tuesday, fingers crossed. Any final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, just to piggyback on the never forgetting this week, it's crazy to know where we were when the report dropped. It was in that environment. It was an amazing show. Yeah. So just thank you guys.
Yeah, it was incredible. And thank you for trusting yourselves and sticking with us and listening and being strong and knowing that you're not crazy and not letting the gaslighting get to you.
Yep.
Good point.
Don't let them light you up. Take care of each other, love one another, do some meditation, have some self-care days, have a nice glass of rosé. You guys have earned it. We'll be coming back week after week as long as you're here and you need us. So thank you so much for all of your support. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our marketing consultant and social media manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our subscriber and communications director is Jordan Coburn. Fact-checking and research by AG, and research assistance by Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our merchandising managers are Sarah Lee Steiner and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.